Let's talk about Zenith Bank full year 2021 earnings, which has kicked off big bank results on Nigeria's market streak as the month of March begins. We check in some of the Zenith Bank's earnings highlights as we bring in Joshua Debisi, who is the head of banking research at Vetiva Capital Management. Let me just get Joshua into the conversation. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Nice one. The 1st of March. So let's just put it there. Do you think the earnings by Zenith you can use it to mirror your expectations as to what the rest of the big banks in Nigeria will report for last year?
Absolutely. So I think this is very positive, obviously, to start off. 10% higher gross earnings year on year. And it sort of beats our expectations. And we already had pretty positive expectations for the tier one banks, so your Zenith banks, your UBAs, your GTCos, and the like. So this is just boding well for that. And I think we can expect that the other banks will probably report, similar positive earnings.
Give me some of the high points of the earnings. You talk about 10.5% gross earnings, 777.62 billion. What else is in the books?
Well, so that mainly was driven by non-interest income, which was up by about 23% year on year. That's actually really the main supporting the driver of the growth in earnings. But interest income itself was not up as high, it was only up by about 2% year on year. But on a positive note, interest expense was down by 12%. So overall, net interest income went up by about 7% overall. Then, going down, there was a little bit of a blip with regards to the impairments, which was up by about 53% year on year. That's really what dragged their profits. So it was only up by 6% year on year. But overall, still a positive result. It's just that those impairments were quite high, almost 60 billion in impairments.
What happened? Any idea?
No, it was sort of expected, but not to that extent. I think Q4 came with a little bit of a negative surprise in that sense. But overall, I think in the grand scheme of things, it kind of makes sense.
But again, there's a final dividend of about 2.2 naira 80 kobo. That's if you consider that as a yield, if you consider the yield on that, how do you think investors would take it?
Well, it's positive. It's 10 kobo higher than the final dividend that they gave last year.
For 2021?
Yeah, for 2020.
Oh, sorry, for 2020.
For 2020, yeah. So, obviously, it is a positive. I think that they could actually have stretched it based on the final profit line. They could actually have stretched it a little bit more. But it's still a positive growth year on year. And dividend yield is still solid given where their stock price is currently. So, I think that investors will be.
Do you think the impairments for last year was an issue, considering the fact that for 2021 we were just emerging from we technically emerged from the pandemic? So why would impairment be that big? Well, would that be industry-wide, moving in your opinion?
No, so I think it's a little bit of a mix. It also depends on the kinds of clients that each bank has. And where they're playing in what sector.
The economy, yeah.
Exactly. So I think, like I said, it was mostly a bit of a negative surprise in Q4, and I don't know if we will definitely see that reflected in other banks. I think we'll see more of higher transaction volumes, which is actually what supported non-interest revenue for Zenith Bank. So that might be reflected among the other banks, but it would definitely be a bit of a mix when it comes to the impairments.
Give me the sweetness in this Zenith Bank earnings. Give me the sweet story. What are the sweeteners? Yeah, the dividend is a sweetener, right? What else is there?
Well, NPLs were down, from 4.2 to about 4.1, no, from 4.3 to about 4.2. So I think that's pretty good. Again, overall, despite the fact that, the impairments went up, NPLs went down, their assets grew by, about over 20%, so they're pushing 10 trillion at the moment. I think it's still a positive and upward trajectory. It's just that overall,
if Zenith is able to push 10 trillion, that will be historic, will it?
Well,
in terms of total assets.
Absolutely, it would be pretty big, but that there are other banks too that have done that as well.
Okay, so your expectations on other big names. This is March, and Zenith is kicking this off. Who else is on your radar?
Well, I'll be very interested to see what happens with GTCO. Just because if, Zenith Bank was able to pull it out of the bag with, non-interest revenue, that is really where GTCO has been making the push recently. And so I'll be very interested to compare and see what kind of improvements they're able to make in Q4. Also, Access Bank, but theirs is Pan-African, same with UBA. Those are the ones we're really looking at.
Same with GTCO?
Yeah, well, to some extent.
To some extent.
Yeah.
Well, do you think the Pan-African banks like Access and UBA will be able to make something a little bit different from other names such as Zenith that are far more local than Pan-African?
Well, different just because, they have a much larger share of their profits coming from those international markets.
Yes.
But overall, obviously, they're not going to, I don't think, come close to the profitability that we've seen from Zenith.
Your outlook on the bank share prices, because everyone's looking at what's going to lift this market. We did just about close to just about 2% in February in terms of the NGX all-share index. Year to date, we're not doing badly at 11% or thereabout, but then we could do a whole lot better. So do you think the bank's earnings will give a fillip to the market in March?
Well, there's a possibility. If we see, universally positive results and, improvements in dividend payouts across the board, then absolutely. But I think we also have to be a bit cautious, just because I think the banks will also be a little bit conservative with their dividend payouts.
Why?
Maybe because of Basel III, to some extent. Obviously, higher retained earnings just to keep their Tier 1 capital
this is the year.
in check. Yeah, exactly. So that could possibly be the reason why we didn't see that much of a jump in Zenith's dividend payout.
Everybody's got to get prepared for that. But would it be a little bit more easier for the Pan-African banks than the other local ones?
Perhaps. But again, they might need more capital, in fact, just because I know that Access probably is still going to be very aggressive about their expansions. UBA, we know that they have been very conservative from the get-go, so they'll probably continue along those lines.
Okay, great. Joshua Debisi, Head Banking Research and Analysis at Capital Management. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.